welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
Hey, what's up?
Jane Belcastro,
Hi.
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
and Jenner.
Jenner here.
Tonight, we've got a ferocious double feature starting with Roar, Noel Marshall's epic that stars Tippi Hedren and a young Melanie Griffith, along with 150 very untrained big cats, with over 70 cast and crew injuries, ultimately proving that cats can be assholes, no matter the size. After that, we'll be discussing Lost Soul, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr Moreau, the documentary about the making of the Island of Dr. Moreau, which was ultimately directed by John Frankenheimer, and will go down in history as one of the great Hollywood disasters. We're going to start with Roar, though. This has been on my pile for a while now, though I'd completely forgotten about it until Ty over on Bastards of the Universe reintroduced it to my brain and suggested we do this on What's on the Pile, and now we're doing it. So I'm really glad we did.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
to start?
I mean, I was familiar. Okay, I was familiar with the whole living situation with them and all the cats, like Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith and all them. And in this movie, I don't remember where I heard about this. I've been racking my brains all week. I'd never seen it before, but I'd heard this story, and I definitely had read the entire Wikipedia page before, but had not seen. I had forgotten that it existed before this week.
Yeah, I'd been sitting on a copy of this for a while. I've been sitting on a copy of the documentary about it for a while because I knew its reputation, but I didn't feel its reputation.
No. It's hard to understate how genuinely frightening this movie is.
This was the scariest fucking movie I have ever seen. Nothing, it's a cliche, but seriously, folks, nothing can prepare you for the sense of imminent danger that this movie presents from any given second to any other given second of the picture.
I actually jumped when Noel Marshall gets bit through the leg by that one lion, and he just screams out. And speaking of cats and lions,
We have another fan.
Yes, my cat has joined the podcast. She wants scratches, and you may have just heard her because she hit the microphone.
Yeah.
This may actually be the most violent movie ever released publicly.
Yeah,
Like most genuinely violent movie, because as we are given to understand, pretty much all the blood in the movie is members of the cast bleeding.
Well, I mean,
And it opens with a Humane Association note saying that none of the animals were harmed. I'm like, okay, even though it may look like they've been harmed, they weren't harmed. But what about the people?
none of the people got hurt.
Leading to the priceless blurb on the theatrical reissue poster, which carried over to the eventual video release, saying none of the animals in this film were harmed. Over 70 cast and crew members were.
But that's not
to be
true.
clear-
Because if you did watch the supplemental documentary that we had, it poor Robbie got killed.
Yeah.
Which was just heartbreaking. But I interrupted you, Matt. I'm sorry.
But I was gonna say that is correct. That they did actually have some of the. I think it was 2 of the cats, or was it just one?
It was
Died
3,
during-
I
three
think.
of
it
them.
was
Was it
2
3?
lionesses and Robbie,
and
who
it was
was one of the big
basically a
stars.
drowning because of an unrelated flood that went through the set at one point.
Yeah, apparently
Um,
this took something like 5 years to film,
And $17 million.
Yeah.
The tagline that 70 cast and crew were injured. If you listen to the commentary track on the film, they actually stipulate, well, 70 was the number of people who went to the hospital.
Oh.
If it was something that could be disinfected with hydrogen peroxide and butterfly stitches, we didn't count that.
Oh, God.
Need to listen to the commentary.
Yeah.
So much hydrogen peroxide.
So much hydrogen peroxide. It is difficult to sort of sum this up, but the way I've come to it is that this is the single most wrong-headed, in every respect, film production that actually produced a film. It was badly conceived to a bad end injured everyone involved except the one guy. Did you hear about the one guy who didn't get savaged or mauled or scratched or anything like that?
No.
No, didn't hear about that.
The African in the film who
Oh.
refused to live with the cats during the proceedings and said, "Look, I'm from Africa, and in Africa we're over here and the lions are over there, and we keep it that way."
Yeah, that was in the movie, right? Wasn't that one of his lines in the movie?
That was.
It probably was.
Yeah.
It was probably taken from his
I think there was
his
definitely
interviews.
some variation on that in there, but yeah, that guy was clearly the most uncomfortable around the animals, and obviously with good reason.
Yeah.
Mativo was his name, I believe.
Mativo,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
I was struggling trying to remember it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mativo was the one person who really wasn't injured in any way. Just about everyone else was injured, and some of them very, very badly. Some of which is on film.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you remember the bit where we saw Tippi Hedren fall from the elephant's back?
Oh, yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that
she
in
broke
the
her leg.
documentary.
Yeah, well, sort of, because it wasn't that it wasn't that the elephant picked her up, it's that she passed out when the elephant crushed her leg between its trunk and its tusk, and she had fallen from the elephant at an awkward angle.
Yeah, that elephant was a dick.
And that was their elephant too, right? They bought that
Yeah.
elephant. That
Yeah,
elephant
they
lived
had
with
3
them?
elephants.
But they,
I
then, then they just rewound the film to make it
Mhm.
look like he was lifting
Being
her up
picked
onto the.
Yeah.
but that
Instead
was
of
one of the
passing
few
out.
things. They had an elephant trainer, right? On for the elephant itself, and they trained it to destroy that boat.
They had a couple, didn't they?
Because they had
Sort
they had a couple
of.
of boats.
No, a
Sort
couple of
They
elephants,
said
I
he
thought.
said that actually it was the son of Noel, stepson of Tippi, apparently had an old camper cover, the kind you put over the back of a pickup truck to make it into a camper, and they just needed to get rid of it, but it was kind of awkward, so they wanted it flattened, and he tossed it out to the elephant, and the elephant tore it the hell up. And Noel saw that and was like, "We got to get that in the movie." So they discovered this elephant just loves playing with aluminum objects that it can destroy and trample.
Well, maybe it is a kind of a dick.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to assume that a big cat will fucking kill you. Our Western predispositions tend to look at elephants a lot more as sort of gentle giants.
Mm-mm.
No. I've seen
No.
enough nature documentaries to know
Yeah.
to stay the hell away from elephants and moose.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
moose are fucking deadly. Moose and hippos.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, hippos are the scariest fucking thing on the planet. But
Water buffalo are apparently. Is it water buffalo that are so crazy? I don't know.
I think the point is we're over here and they're over there, whatever they are. It is the sort of film that reminds you that basically we're a high level. The dominant species of the planet is a high level omnivore that willingly takes obligate carnivores into their homes to live and mingle with their children. But this is sort of an extreme example. The sheer volume of cats that will fucking kill you in the real world in this movie is nothing short of astonishing.
Yeah.
They scalped Jan de Bont, for God's sake.
And not because he made Speed 2, but because they just wanted to. Because he was there.
I did find it. One of the first moments of this movie where I was scraping my jaw up off the floor was going through the opening credits and the cinematography by Jan de Bont. Before he had even hooked up with Paul Verhoeven, and it does have fantastic cinematography, especially considering how many people had to be running for their dear lives when they were attempting to get those shots into the camera.
I think he considers it one of his best projects.
Well, recall that Monty Hellman considered Silent Night, Deadly Night his best work, too.
Very true.
Kind of reaching a little bit for the parallel, but, the fact that this produced... Yeah, you're absolutely right. The fact that this produced a semi-coherent film that actually got released. The fact that nobody died
Yeah.
is astonishing.
That's
Borders on the
astonishing.
miraculous. I mean, Lord knows people got close. They, semi-disfigured Melanie Griffith, for pity's sake, before she even had a chance to be the Melanie Griffith that we're, aware of. This movie is a lot. I think that was...
It's an experience more than anything. It's not... You don't come to this movie for a plot, because it doesn't really have...
I couldn't follow what the hell was happening. Also, maybe it was just because the copy I was watching, I couldn't... Most of the time, all I heard was just vaguely tribal music, and then like... rah, 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 for the entire movie, even when people were talking.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Did
wow.
you? I watched it on Tubi.
Yeah.
I have a DVD. I have a Blu-ray.
Okay, well, I
now
watched
have a Blu-ray.
I watched the copy that you guys uploaded for me. But
oh, yeah.
And I did think the whole time, I said to Jenna, we were watching that one, and I was like, I'd give my left arm, for subtitles at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't understand anything. Not that what they were saying really mattered that much.
Yeah.
That's not what we were there for.
I mean, I was impressed by the improv skills of several of the actors. Noel Marshall, given that he was basically being, as I understand it himself, doing that completely earnest nature documentarian thing, except in a condition of constant imminent peril of the cats around us. So the fact that he kept delivering lines as the cats were actively damaging him.
Well, I mean, this is a man who, in the first 10 minutes, decides to run in and break up a fight between two lions.
Yeah,
and not like a play fight, like a serious kick your ass fight. And this man decided to put himself between them.
The guy will allow the guy has an interesting idea of what qualifies as a good idea, quote unquote, or something you should do, quote unquote.
He's an extremely manic personality too. That's something I noticed from him. But it's charismatic in a way because it draws you in almost hypnotically. Watching him so into these big cats and watching the train wreck of these cats destroying people in front of our very eyes. He seems so joyous throughout the entire thing and just so into it and so happy that
it is absolutely sincere.
Yeah.
Absolutely earnest.
And I think that's what I like about the performance is I like how manic and sincere it is.
Yeah. At the same time, it's a breathtakingly bad idea, but executed with absolute sincerity. And there is something to be said for that, aside from the fact that worth noting for our audience who haven't actually seen the movie, this is not actually a horror movie.
No.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a comedy, right?
Comedy.
This is supposed to be a family comedy.
And they tried to market it as such, but that didn't work, and it wasn't really horror. It's just sort of transcended anything any audience would actually want to see besides us.
It's like I say, I'm not even being facetious. This is the scariest movie I have ever seen. This has the most immediate and constant sense of literal, real world, physical peril to everyone in the picture of any film I've ever seen. I have seen documentaries about stuntmen that aren't where you don't worry as much about the people in this, because stuntmen actually have a plan. They know what they're doing.
I mean, as a comedy, were there any jokes? I kept looking for jokes other than people falling on the ground and being like, which in context isn't that funny.
I think it was just marketed as a comedy because they ran out of stuff to market it as.
You forgot the slapstick stuff. You forgot about the jar of honey that got poured on Tippi Hedren.
Oh, I thought that was like a dangerous situation about to happen.
Terrifying.
Oh, it was a dangerous situation. That's the thing. The intent of this film, which is even more wrong-headed than you can possibly guess from our summary of it. The actual intention of this film is about 20% conservation message, okay, and about 80%, look, people and big cats can live together. And
no, they can't.
No, they fucking can't. I am very curious. If I was a horrible person, I would show this film to my daughter, because she doesn't have the context of knowing that, like, you don't put two full-grown lions anywhere near one another because they will fight over the lionesses who were present, right? Because there's only going to be one lion in this pride. And she doesn't understand that you shouldn't have 13 lions and 4 tigers who don't even belong on the same continent in the same room.
The
They kind of addressed that in the plot where they said, where the poachers were like, you should never have brought tigers over here. And it wasn't. It was all filmed in California anyway. And they've got cougars and jaguars and leopards and cheetahs. I mean, all from different areas.
Yeah, I was about to say, leopards, for pity's sake. Leopards are one of very few animals on the planet other than maybe the wolverine and the honey badger that like killing things and not doing anything with what's left.
Yeah.
They are a malice murderer.
This is the purpose of this film is basically a justification for their lifestyle written large, which is they grew up with these untrained, untamed big cats in the house all the time. And it was a situation that they started growing up with, and then they started hiding it from the police, and then they bought themselves a giant ranch in order to have a quote-unquote preserve in which they could go out and hug all of the tigers and lions, which is a terrible idea. There is a direct line from this to Tiger King.
Uh-huh. There is.
And
and the thing where they had the baby was born, the little cub, and they were like, oh, look, it's another liger.
Mm-hmm.
But, ligers have like terrible genetic defects, and that's why they get so big. But they, a lot of times they're blind, they're definitely sterile, there's all sorts of problems with them, and they're just like, oh, look, here's another one.
Oh no.
They don't even live very long. And I
mean, make no mistake, before I had developed a sense of self-preservation as a child, I loved cats as a child. I've loved cats my whole life. As, forgive the phrasing here, cat porn, this movie is absolutely astonishing. The animals are beautiful and amazing and majestic, and the sheer scale of putting these puny humans next to these enormous creatures is a little bit breathtaking in its own right, but at the same time, it's also an acute illustration of why you should never put these puny humans next to these enormous animals. So, amongst other things, this makes it for some of the most genuinely suspenseful chase scenes that I've ever seen. Is everybody's chasing the or as all of the cats are chasing our cast around, because if they catch them, they're gonna fucking kill them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the trick too, because these are animals that they're well-fed animals. They're not trained, but they're very well attenuated to people, and you see it frequently in the film. Noel there's a tiger that's sort of up on him and hugging him, and he's hugging it back, and it's sort of play fighting. But they're fucking cats, okay? Dogs have a social structure that they obey. Cats do not. And all of the injuries that they talked about in this film were basically like, oh, this was a really calm part, and then the tiger just turned around and bit Melanie on the back of the head. Because they're fucking cats, and they're gonna do what they want on a whim.
Yeah. Wait, do you have any cats?
I do not have cats, but I grew up with cats, and I'm a very much a frustrated cat person.
See, we have 5 now. Sadly, we lost our Muffin a couple weeks ago. But I know. So anyway, we'll move on. But we have a lot of cats all in the house. They are not outdoor cats, and they do really well. They do actually have a bit of a social structure, and they're all neutered. And well fed.
It's not a matter of respect.
I can still pet on Lucian, and if I don't keep petting him, he'll grab my hand and leave me bleeding.
Yeah, but, at the same time,
he's tiny.
Our cat Iceberg is the biggest of our cats, with the possible exception of Argent. He has designated himself my bodyguard and my small spoon when I am sleeping to boot. But he still he spends some time unhomed, and consequently he still has his street reflexes. So most nights as we're watching movies, he's sitting on the back of the sofa to the right of my head, but if he happens to be facing toward me and my scalp comes in proximity to his claws, he will dig in without even waking up, much less thinking about it.
Yeah,
you can have a lion that will let you hug on it 90% of the time.
99% of the time.
99% of the time.
It's
that
1%.
one hug where it doesn't want to get hugged, that you turn into
a meal.
A collection of viscera.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it absolutely I mean, I'm a frustrated cat person. Christy is allergic, so we can't have cats.
No.
I'm a frustrated cat person from way back, but it's just the temperament of cats is not the respectful social structure you get with dogs. And if these are domesticated cats we have experience with, so that's an entirely other creature than the wild big cats. And even then, the domesticated cat will every once in a while just turn around and decide to, grab hold with both front paws and rake your arm with his back paws. And
Yeah.
That's
if
iceberg.
if a lion does
That's
that, you are
iceberg.
dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if the paw is bigger than you head,
Mhm.
you dead.
Yeah.
I was saying the other night, if I'm in the kitchen, and Ripley wants brushing, she'll take a run all the way around the kitchen and then fly at me with her claws and grab the back of my legs until I go and get the brush, and she'll just keep doing it. And she's just the sweetest, kindest little baby ever. But
we may coexist, but they have their own distinct motivations, and they have their own distinct ideas as to how to effect those motivations.
I couldn't imagine 150 different personalities of cats all on that set, because we have everything kind of balanced.
Yeah, exactly. It's a movie about crazy cat people, except it's not even like Rene Cardona's Night of 1,000 Cats, because as many as those were, they were still domestic cats. It's Night of 100 Cats, any one of which could kill everybody in the entire movie at will.
And that's
worth noting, and this is possibly the lead we've been bearing this whole time. See this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Maybe not with your children.
Maybe not with your children, unless they have yet to develop that sense of self-preservation,
or even that.
I don't know. I watched this with my children.
What did they say?
Yeah, but you showed your daughter Jurassic Park when she was like 3, and she was laughing.
Yeah. She was. I hate to admit this, but she was bored.
Really?
Yeah. She didn't like the plot. She liked the cats. She liked when they would attack people. And that's about it.
Yeah, we had our one cat, Dulcet, loves nature documentaries. She went wild. She was running around the living room and looking at the screen, and then I think she got a little overwhelmed and had a nap in my office. She loved it. She loved it.
Well, it should be noted that this is not a movie you go to for the plot. There is not much there. It is pitched at PG-13. It's
PG.
Oh, that's right.
Even with the scene with the hunters at the end,
and the genuine blood,
that was
like
awful.
the actual on-screen human blood.
Yeah, I think I noticed 1 or 2 stunt double scenes, and those were involving motorcycles. Not like when there's a guy riding a motorcycle surrounded by tigers and elephants, it's the guy. But if he goes off a jump or something, all of a sudden it's a stunt double. I'm like, I feel like the lions are more dangerous than going off that little ramp. But
They said they discovered during the filming that big cats love motorcycles because they go at about the same speed, so they can chase it, and it's a genuine race.
Back to Amelia, I kind of wonder if maybe it has something to do with we had the suspension of disbelief. Whereas she doesn't have to bother because CGI is so good now. We don't even have to suspend disbelief. I mean, we look at something, we're like, how did they do that? And so maybe when she sees all of these lions like attacking people, she's like, yeah, okay, movie magic. Do you think? Or
That's
she seems
possible.
really smart
The
though,
equivalent
so
of
maybe
a cartoon.
I'm not sure she did really understand that they were untrained. I may have had to. Maybe should have explained that a little better.
traumatize her a little harder.
This is not a movie that works as its text. This is a movie that slides right into place as an extraordinary piece of cinema just based on the least understanding of its context, where it came from. If you don't realize that the people are actually being mangled, there's not actually a tremendous amount of point to watching the movie except to watch the, enormous cats. I think that's what finally lost Dulcet, was there weren't enough cheetahs. The cheetahs are her favorite.
No, watching those cats interact with environments was absolutely stunning. I loved it so much. Seeing them in that particular environment, it led to some very wonderful moments shot on film. And I loved it every time a cat got onto a table, it would always knock something off of it.
We know about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the thing that carries the movie across is the constant sense of abject terror of my God, what is this force of nature going to do next, even if it didn't kill somebody?
Yeah, my favorite scene, which may be the only comedy moment I noticed, was the whole short-term solution of immersing yourself in a barrel of water to escape being completely surrounded by these giant cats. Just go in there and hide for like 30 seconds, come back up, oh, they're still there. I guess I'll just go back into the water.
And then the cats are all drinking as fast as they can to get rid of the water.
A touch of context to that, too. From the guy who was in the barrel, who was on the commentary track, he said that there was actually kind of a problem because the barrel was set up and there were a bunch of cats around. And there were a couple of cats that he was great friends with. And there were a couple of cats that everyone was scared of. So he would be under the water looking up to see which cat was there. And if it was the scary cat, he would shoot up and shoot back down to try and startle the cat away from the top of the barrel. And if it was the nice cat, then he could go up and do the comedy look and then go back down. So that was kind of literally what we were looking at, was what the story was telling us we were looking at there. Was him really genuinely trapped in a barrel.
I will have to allow the visual of the boat going down the river, capsizing with those two very placid tigers on the front, is kind of a wonderful comedy visual.
Yeah, I love that.
That moment in particular had a very Disney live action 60s and 70s feeling to it. The rest of the movie was trying for something like that, but it was too freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
To get that tone across.
Well, the bit with the boat also brings across one of the few times you actually see how much these things weigh, because each one of those cats is about 700 pounds, and they're between the two of them, that boat is going down, and it is going down slowly, and it is getting dragged, and all the cats are doing is just sitting there, forcing it under.
Tigers love water.
Yeah, apparently. I did not know that. But they definitely do. One of the parts of the boat going down the river shortly for a short amount of time. My favorite part of the entire movie was when that one lion just kept kind of reaching his paw out to bring the boat closer to it.
The guy's just sort of rowing.
And it does it like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And it's so hilarious because it's such a cat thing to do.
Again, commentary track from the guy who was trying to paddle the boat away. Apparently, that was the lion who, the day before, had chomped down on his arm and not let go for 25 minutes.
25 minutes? What?
Yeah. Something like they had to come by and very slowly and gradually pry the lion off of his arm because he's a cat. And you know what a cat is like when it gets something it wants. All pointy ends. So yeah, there was a little more peril in that moment.
Yeah, an arm, a jacket, whatever.
Yeah.
That jacket got ravaged.
Yeah. To a very similar effect was the bit when they're trying to make a half-hearted attempt to get their boat back from the elephant.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Elephant's like, oh, you want your boat? Huh? Fuck your boat.
And now it's squished. And now it's flat. What are you going to do with a flat boat?
Elephant was a dick.
At least he was portrayed that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make anybody look like an asshole if you cut everything just right. But they definitely made that poor elephant look like he was a complete dick.
Yeah.
Togo 2024.
I don't understand how they did the end of the movie with the two hunters getting killed. I don't understand how they interacted with the lion that well to make it look like it was slaughtering them when it obviously nobody died on the picture. but it looks realistic. It looks really good. They did a great job with it. Great editing.
I don't know. I mean, has anybody actually, looked into any strange holes around Shambhala's, back 40? I mean, I didn't particularly recognize the actors playing the hunters. I don't know about you guys.
Well,
They had a very short career.
There's a reason you didn't recognize them. They were actually professional lion tamers.
Okay.
Those were two actual lion tamers. So there's a little more at work than just the family who really likes lions and are their friends. With them.
So you figure every time that they called cut, the two guys playing the poachers were probably just like, oh, just this check better clear. Sweet Jesus.
All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts on Roar before we go to our break?
See it.
Yes.
One of the most legitimately extraordinary movies ever made. They say they don't make them like they used to. And in the words of the great Ray Stantz, they never made them like this.
So to that end, I do want to say that I feel like the rediscovery of this movie, which about maybe 5-8 years ago or so, it has a very kind of engineered feel to it, because I get the impression that the film was made with a particular intent in mind, and it was going to go to this particular group, and the group saw it and said, there is no way we're going to actually screen this anywhere, because it is showing exactly the opposite of what we're trying to say, which is people should leave big cats alone.
Yeah.
And then it existed in limbo. It got a release of some sort, and then it existed in limbo for 30, how many years? 35
Something
years?
Something like that.
And then the recent rediscovery and release by Alamo Drafthouse really felt kind of engineered to me.
Drafthouse is manna from God for hipsters.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's manna from God for hipsters.
And we still get to benefit. So I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying the release has a very, I don't know, modern grindhouse feel to it. Like, look, we discovered this thing. You have to come and see it. But we're saying, yeah, you really need to see this thing. It is
seriously.
incredible.
And we told you pretty much everything about it, and yet I feel like we didn't spoil it one bit.
Yeah, we haven't
just watch.
We have not said anything. We have said very little about the plot, to the extent that the plot exists.
Well,
you
have to see it to believe it. Let's just put it that way.
Again, like me, having the movie on my pile and then subsequently experiencing the film, realizing that there is a radical gulf between the two of them.
Here is a text explanation of what it feels like to go on a roller coaster ride. Going on a roller coaster ride is very different.
Scariest movie ever made.
Yeah.
No shit.
So go out and see it. Why don't we go ahead and take our break now? We will be right back. And we're back. Next up is Lost Soul, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. Hell of a title. This this documentary gives us a behind-the-scenes look at one of Hollywood's great disasters, the Island of Dr. Moreau, ultimately directed by John Frankenheimer, if you call it directing. This was on my pile. I saw Dr. Moreau in the theater and remember being absolutely fascinated by how bad it was.
Yeah, myself as well.
Yeah.
So this was a very interesting documentary for me to watch because I've never seen the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh.
So I don't know what's in the actual movie. So there's a long section in the beginning where Richard Stanley's talking about all of this stuff, which kind of reminded me of Jodorowsky's Dune, where he seems to not. He seems to know more about the source material than Jodorowsky knew about Dune, but he does talk about how he's sort of veering off where he's adding a cat lady because of the promise of a poster of a previous version that he saw. Apparently, there's no cat girl in the movie. I don't know if there's a cat girl in the new movie, his version.
There was a Panther girl in the first movie.
Island of Lost Souls had a Panther girl, right?
Okay. So
the Panther girl's been standard for a while now.
Okay, so as they're going through all this stuff, I have no idea what's going to be in the movie, and I still haven't seen it. When they're doing the casting, I knew that Val Kilmer was in it, that Marlon Brando was in it. I didn't know anything else, so I mean, I don't think I ever need to see this movie.
No.
But going through the documentary,
it's interesting.
Just out of a curiosity, it is very strange. It is very.
It is strange. Yeah, it's like an acid.
Yeah.
Trip.
So.
Yeah.
So, I also have not seen The Island of Dr. Moreau, this production of it, but the book, The Island of Dr. Moreau, is actually my genuine favorite Wells novel. And just for Shane's benefit, The Island of Dr. Moreau is about a great artisan who goes out into a random wilderness in which he applies his art in an attempt to create something great, and in a great struggle with one of his, shall we call them main actors, is removed from the island and is no longer around, at which point everything he created in his grand artwork begins collapsing in on itself in a bacchanalia and descent into, oh, wait a minute, that's the documentary, too. Sorry, I had to say that because it occurred to me how closely the two stories kind of parallel one another, the actual novel and the documentary about attempting to turn the novel into a movie.
That's really interesting.
I also had not seen, I wrote this down in my notes and realized it was false later. I'd never seen a Richard Stanley movie, but I realized I've seen Color Out of Space, but I hadn't seen Hardware or Dust
You
Devil.
haven't seen Hardware?
I haven't seen Hardware.
Oh my God, that was like my
Hardware.
favorite movie when it came out. I just loved it. I watched it over and over and over. Sometimes on acid, but I loved that movie.
Hardware is great. So is Dust Devil, really.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of them.
During Dust Devil.
So he did Color Out of Space too?
Yes. That was his comeback picture.
Okay.
That was fantastic.
I fell asleep during that one.
Although I find it interesting after working
it.
with Brando and Kilmer, he's like, hey, let's work with Nicolas Cage. Although I have no idea how Nicolas Cage is on a set. I imagine he's not like Kilmer and Brando.
Yeah, no, by all accounts, Cage, anytime that he's on a set, loves what he's doing so much that he's just an absolute joy to work with, is my understanding. Even if he can definitely be a bit intense. But by all accounts, he's just an absolute mensch on set.
Well, and there is the big question, was Brando just fucking with them?
Given that Brando was a big stumper for Stanley on this project, I sincerely believe that all of the goofiness that Brando did to the project was an attempt to slit its fucking throat after Stanley had gotten kicked off. This was one of the purest acts of cinematic revenge that I have been able to infer ever.
It's just it's kind of fascinating how what he did, what he brought to the picture, what Brando brought with his insane ideas and his just I guess fucking with them attitude. It's fascinating to watch because it's really kind of the most interesting thing in the movie is the stuff that he's doing. The rest of Island of Dr. Moreau is really very, very poorly done, like on a technical level.
Frankenheimer as gun for hire, which is odd. I like the description in the documentary of Frankenheimer as last of the great old school screamers.
Yeah.
Which I can actually attest to that. I had a number of friends who were extras on TNT's Andersonville miniseries, which Frankenheimer directed back in the 90s. And they vouched that, he pretty much directed by screaming at everybody all the time. I have friends from back in the day who have had the privilege of getting yelled at by John Frankenheimer. No, somebody once said about Frankenheimer, it's like, oh, he's the greatest director ever. I mean, most directors will, try to talk about motivation or, cajole you or attempt to reason with you, and he'll just scream at you until you do what he wants you to.
I definitely wouldn't want to be on that set.
I don't think anybody wanted to be on that set except for the extras who were paid to party for 6 straight months.
No,
that sounded awesome.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. No, I meant on a
makeup.
Frankenheimer set.
Yeah.
No, I meant on a Frankenheimer set in
Oh,
general.
yeah.
I don't like bullies on sets.
Yeah, no. My friends vouched that the Andersonville set was actually pretty miserable. Of course, it didn't help that it was in Georgia's rainy season.
But yeah, those extras, they had a hell of a time.
Yeah.
That was one of my final notes was the crew had fun. Which good for
Yeah.
them.
So that's something.
Yeah.
Now, the movie itself, Island of Dr. Moreau, it is a mess. It is one of those things where you can see watching it that this was not what it was supposed to be. That somewhere along the line, and the phrasing here is deliberate, it got neutered. With the exception of everything that Brando does in the picture.
Yeah.
And actually,
I don't even know what he does. So like all I heard was stories and just a couple random snippets. I mean, I know he carried that little guy around with him all the time.
That was
But
the biggest
pretty
thing.
much all I
That was
know.
the biggest addition to the movie. That and the white face paint.
Well, I mean, the thing was apparently he spent the whole movie basically in a near diaphanous moo-moo. And one of the interesting stories I picked up at one of the little side panels at Dragon Con back in the day was some digital artists when CGI was still relatively new and novel, talking about how one of their friends had worked on the Island of Dr. Moreau, and his only job on the picture was digitally deleting Marlon Brando's penis from every last shot in the film in which he appeared.
I love that story.
That's a good one.
This is a movie that needed a documentary. I'm amazed that it took something like 18 years for the true story, such as it was, to be told.
Well, it got so
It
buried.
Probably took that long just for Richard Stanley to lick his wounds and be willing to talk about it again. Because I mean, what happened to him seemed.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was fired after less than a week. It sounded like they were shooting for a while.
He was
but then I
fired
read about it.
after 2 days of principal photography, and it was mostly Val Kilmer who had it in for him, apparently.
Yeah.
Lending itself to the rather amazing quote from Frankenheimer, of course, about Val Kilmer right after Batman Forever, saying, "If I was making a movie called The Life of Val Kilmer, I wouldn't cast this prick." Another mercurial character in his own right.
And the whole thing about you were talking about Jenner, about how Brando was trying to slash the throat of this film. He was fucking with Val Kilmer like hardcore, and like kind of doing everything he did. Like I won't leave the trailer unless he leaves the trailer.
Yeah.
And they kept doing it to each other, and it just made Val Kilmer look even more ridiculous, I feel, because somebody should have been the grown up there. But why would it have to be Marlon Brando? I mean, he's Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
So
No, Val Kilmer seems very petulant. He doesn't seem like a very fun guy to hang out with. He never has. I
keep
a
thinking
lot of
I
his
want to
movies.
see his documentary.
Yeah, there's a new documentary about him. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard nothing but bad things about him. Although on Reddit, he's sort of had this resurgence as this like kind of cool dude who hangs out on Reddit and does AMAs and seems really cool. But I mean, he's old now, I guess. But back in the day, all I heard was just shitty things about.
Oh, he's
behavior.
half dead now. I mean, he had cancer. He can't even hardly talk. He had to have his son do all the voiceovers for do all the narration for his documentary. I watched the first 20 minutes. I'm like, this is fascinating. I have got to stop because I was doing other things. I'm gonna have to like sit down and watch this. So it's gonna be on my pile. If anybody's interested.
Kilmer as a character is kind of the short version, but if your method approach to playing an asshole is being an asshole, that's problematic, especially when you're an hour from freaking civilization. I think the low-key heroine of the documentary is probably Farouza Balk here, who
she was great.
All of us absolutely adore, and who has always had kind of a wonderful core of, again, sincerity around most of the stuff that she's done, even when she's been playing completely whack job characters. But the bit that always sticks with me from the documentary here is her exchange with Brando when they're talking about, or when she's trying to talk about motivation or that sort of thing. And Brando says, "You've got your lines. Deliver your lines. Collect your paycheck. I'm getting paid. You're getting paid. It's enough."
The other guy I really liked was also, because I haven't seen the movie, I don't know how much he's in it. It was kind of hard to tell. The German guy who was in Europa, who I didn't realize that was the guy, because I've seen Europa. It's a fantastic movie. Didn't know it was him until he told the story about Val Kilmer recognizing him from that movie. He told some really good stories, but also it seemed like his part was cut a lot and he was fucked with a lot.
Yeah, apparently he's in like four scenes at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like he had a substantial part that got cut way, way down. But it was just, having not seen it, I just don't know. I know he was in the documentary a lot, and he was really engaging and funny. And it looks like he hasn't worked that much. He didn't work that much between Europa, and Dr. Moreau, and also not that much since.
Oh no, this is a movie that seriously messed up some careers. This was supposed to be, Richard Stanley, already at that point, after 2 features and a lot of music videos, a cult icon. Kind of hitting big with the mainstream, and that just didn't happen. So he ended up becoming varying degrees of reclusive and doing some deeply strange and fascinating documentaries for the BBC, which are mostly included in the unfortunately long out of print limited edition of the director's cut of Dust Devil, which is a pity because the documentaries are, and even the stories surrounding some of the documentaries, are as fascinating as any of his narrative films, with the exception of Color Out of Space. I think is an absolute masterpiece. I think it's freaking amazing. I hope that the current shit that's ongoing between him and Spectre Vision and certain problematic elements that are still being litigated get sorted out, because I was really hoping for the other 2 pictures of that deal. I figure if anybody can do justice to the Dunwich Horror, it's going to be Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
And when Richard Stanley at one point says he needed to resort to witchcraft, I thought he meant, I'm gonna have to be clever or tricky.
No,
I didn't realize he was gonna go to an actual shaman or a warlock is what it was, and
a warlock.
have him do actual witchcraft.
That is actually my favorite moment of the entire documentary, when he says that, because it is such a deadpan delivery. You're absolutely right. Everyone who watches it thinks, and it was at this point I had to resort to witchcraft. And you think there's a follow-up where he's like, just kidding, or I'm being clever, or no,
he was resorting to literal witchcraft.
And
it was,
and the way it unraveled as the warlock.
Skip the warlock.
Skippy the warlock. He as he got sicker with some malady that looked very mysterious and possibly supernatural. As he got sicker, everything that he had fixed, and I'm using air quotes because that is what Stanley had called it, a fix. Everything he had fixed fell apart, or started to fall apart.
Well, I mean, notably, Stanley has always been deeply mysticistical. Mystical. Like one of his kind of lost years documentaries was called The Secret Glory. It was about an SS officer who was searching for a holy grail, and who apparently found one that is still available for examination in a French museum by appointment. Apparently, it is a metal bowl of meteoric rock that bleeds. Supposedly, Stanley took a few of the drops of the highly ferrous liquid that emitted from the thing, dropped them in his mother's eyes, and her cancer disappeared about 6 months later. And also swallowed a small tincture of it in his own right, and ceased to age for the next 20 years, which I can kind of vouch based on his appearance in Lost Soul versus in his appearance the last time that I had seen him, which was right around the turn of the millennium. The guy is into some interesting stuff. I still need to see his documentary Otherworld, which is about places in France where supposedly there is the possible crossover with other dimensions.
Okay.
Like I say, it's not New Age per se. It's something else.
I'm sorry that Ty couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I really wanted to hear his take
I really
on
wanted to hear his
Stanley.
take on some of that sort of thing as well. But Stanley's a fascinating character and has been pretty much since he first started to hit with, well, again, Hardware, which I too think is an absolutely amazing movie, and Dust Devil, which is, of course, notable as being one of the most legendary cases amongst genre film devotees of the Weinsteins cutting a half an hour out of a movie because they could. But also one of my single favorite soundtracks ever.
That's funny because the Hardware soundtrack is one of my favorites ever.
No, the guy makes movies that are experiences, and I'll allow Island of Dr. Moreau is an experience. It is not the one that its original director and the guy who had been working on it for a good 10 years by that point, if not, his whole life, had intended.
I feel like Stanley's kind of not from the same school, but from the same sphere as Jodorowsky.
Yes, the same.
Very much, not exactly New Age, but definitely mysticism, and approaching it with just this factual, taken for granted these things that gives it such a unique air.
Yeah, no, the Blu-ray edition of Lost Soul is a great piece of work in its own right, not least for having a tremendous amount of outtakes, including no less than 47 additional minutes of Stanley as a talking head. Lord knows how many more of everybody else that they had in the quote-unquote outtake section. But the second disc is a restoration of the 1921 German silent version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which for a lot of collectors, even if they don't give a flying syrupy shit about Richard Stanley or the 96 Island of Dr. Moreau, is probably going to be worthwhile in its own right. This is the thing I like about Severin, is they like including surprise restorations of deeply obscure, mostly lost films as supplementary features. They did the same thing again last year with an Eli Roth-helmed basically quarantine, remotely sourced documentary about portmanteau movies called Tales of the Uncanny, where amongst the supplementary features on the second disc were two, up until that point, generally considered lost, I want to say a 1931 and a 1949 horror anthology film from, I believe, Germany and France. Severin likes doing that sort of thing, but the third disc, that I still need to get around to mucking with on Lost Soul, is a CD-ROM of Richard Stanley doing an audiobook of The Island of Dr. Moreau. So it is a magnificent piece of packaging as much as anything else. It's a very, very rewarding collection.
It's interesting just because the reason that I love Island of Dr. Moreau so much was I came across the Atlanta Radio Theater doing a rendition of that in like Dragon Con 3 or 4.
We talked about that last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I was present. I believe it was 1995, the year that Dragon Con was hosting Worldcon. That was the first occasion that Harlan Ellison yelled at me. I have it as a point. I have it as a point of pride that I have that on one occasion I was yelled at, and on another occasion had my life jokingly threatened by my favorite author. But amongst other, and also got Neil Gaiman to sign one of the issues, or one of the Distant Mirrors issues of Sandman at that point. So it was a pretty seminal convention for me. But also, I believe that was the one where they had the live performance of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I believe included Ellison in the cast as, I want to say, the duplicitous sidekick doctor character. So that was a great show.
And I was talking about, I was driving through Atlanta. I think I'd just gone to see my friend because I seem to remember driving down 675. I didn't even live in Atlanta at the time, and I just remember there was some sort of radio documentary about the Foley work and the whole production of that. And Jenner insists it must have been.
You caught a supplemental feature because they did broadcast on the local NPR stations around that time.
So yeah, so weirdly, I actually experienced it too. I was the one that brought it up to Jenner, and he's like, "Oh, you saw the Atlanta Radio Theater, or heard it."
That is weirdly serendipitous.
Yeah, so that's 3 of us that enjoyed that. So.
Of course, lending itself to, as I often find myself saying about Dracula. So there then is the island of Dr. Moreau. It's a wonderful story. I wish somebody would actually make a movie of it one of these days.
Yeah.
Much as I adore Island of Lost Souls, it is not a particularly close adaptation.
Yeah. On the topic of the movie itself, one issue that I have with it, I have an actual issue with the construction of the film, of the documentary. I think it was actually kind of poorly made. The documentary itself, like, it's all very interesting information. It's very it's some very captivating stories, but a lot of those motion graphics were cheap. They were cheaply done by cheap motion graphics artists who don't know how to do easing.
I will freely allow that that when we rewatched it last night, it was the second time that I had seen it, and it does feel a lot more like a supplemental documentary than a feature in its own right.
Yeah.
I found the assembly a little bit pedestrian, just at the same time, realistically, the story is batshit insane enough in its own right. It kind of speaks for itself. It didn't need a whole lot of technique on the documentarian side.
No, but they also didn't need to do the overly used 3D photographs type thing. They just put the Z depth way too high, and it bothered the shit out of me. I'm sure that hundreds of people agree with me. They must.
Well, I thought it was a little awkward, but I don't think it struck me as badly as someone who is as technically experienced as yourself. I mean,
it is quotidian filmmaking depicting an absolutely phosphorescently bonkers real life story.
One thing they did succeed in narratively was that I forgot about Richard Stanley about 2/3 of the way through the movie, and then he comes back. I'm like, oh shit, he's been there all along.
I know.
I did not see that coming.
That was
He
delightful.
was there the whole time.
Just some guy in the woods smoking pot, bitching about Val Kilmer, and they find him.
And how much
they just
money?
mentioned-
How much money was on the line that he was supposed to get paid, but wouldn't get paid if he got caught? Then he didn't get caught. Now, did he?
No,
I
he got
mean,
paid.
he got paid.
But there is photo evidence, considering that, you know, he
was
did
the
appear as
bulldog,
an extra in
which is
several
great. It
scenes
was
that are still in the film.
It was he came back as a bulldog, you know, an animal who is bred for never letting go.
Yeah, I did like how they kind of mentioned, and then they mentioned that, you know, they thought he got on the plane, but he didn't get off the other end, and
He's been
okay,
missing.
and then they just drop that and they go on with the story, and then a little while later they're like, we've heard about this guy who's up the river smoking. They go back and they find their director.
But those 2 guys were awesome. They were like,
they
this
were
thing was
great.
fucked, and we just had the best time.
Yeah, those guys were great.
No, there are about 10 layers of extraordinary story going on in this, and yeah, no, I'll agree that the best kind of cinematic feint that the makers of the documentary did, as you say, Shane, was making us forget about Richard Stanley until his surprise reappearance in the 3rd act.
That was beautiful.
Like, I guess when you have Brando and Kilmer front and center, it's easy to just forget about another person. So maybe that did all the heavy lifting for them. But still, just the way they structured it was really fun.
It was.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it's serviceable. It's a serviceable documentary with an absolutely astonishing story.
Yeah, it was highly entertaining, I felt. I mean, I understand that, you know, if you were very technically experienced like Nate, that it might have its flaws, but it's riveting.
It is a riveting story. There are very few disasters that I've been more interested in knowing more about. And the documentary did deliver. It gave me everything I wanted to know about why this film failed. And it makes perfect sense. It was Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I mean, given that this is sort of in a rarefied place in a rarefied subgenre in its own right. There is that small class of documentaries about the unmaking of a film in the context of the subgenre of movies about the unmaking of a movie. This is one of very few in which there was ultimately a final product. But the fact that there was a final product probably didn't help.
I mean, Nate, when you mentioned Val Kilmer, one thing that never comes across in the documentary is how is Val Kilmer in the movie? Is he just there? Does he do anything interesting? Or
Not really.
He has a couple of douchey line deliveries, and that's about as much as I can remember. Frankly, I mean, it's been an extremely long time since I've seen it as well. I think I still have a letterboxed VHS of it.
Well, remember, he was supposed to have a larger part, and then he said, well, I can only do 40 days of shooting.
He was going to be the castaway, I think.
Yeah, he was going to be the role that ultimately ended up being David Thewlis.
Yeah.
Now
wait, David Thewlis was in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
he's the
actual hero of the movie.
He wasn't shown.
No, they showed his face in one shot, but they didn't mention him at all.
He's the lead?
Yeah.
Okay, I never would have guessed.
At that poor dude, he really cut his teeth on this and Dragonheart. That poor guy, master actor, and he's in these two movies. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, this was what, like 4 years after Naked? Jesus.
After Naked, yeah, that's right. I guess he needed to do a Hollywood movie, but I mean, Naked was incredible. God, that movie was so phenomenal.
Well, I haven't seen that.
We need to put that on the pile.
Put it on the pile.
Yeah. Whichever season of Fargo he was in, he was fantastic. I mean, he was disgusting and hard to watch, but he was great. I think it was the Ewan McGregor season where he played the villain.
Okay.
I loved him in Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yeah. Where he dies off screen. Although in the book he dies off screen too, to be fair, but still, he deserves better.
He does. Yeah. Not a fan of how that series ended.
Thewlis has had some highs and his lows in his career, but this took a lot to recover from as well. To be quite frank,
but he did.
He did. He ended up as nobody does his line delivery. Nobody has that voice. Nobody is as effective as David Thewlis at turning a nasal delivery to its advantage. And that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but it's really not. The guy has one of the most plummy vocal deliveries. He's always a joy to listen to. It's it makes him one of the low-key joys of Netflix's big mouth as the shame wizard.
The shame wizard.
Amongst other things, showing what an abject sport the dude is. But I don't know. In 2014, I'm not sure what he was doing. My impression is he's in the special thanks at the end of the thing, so it's possible they had some footage for him. Not having delved too deeply into the supplementary features on this, it's possible that they just didn't have time for him because he was one of the parts of the movie that actually worked correctly, I guess. Either that or
that's not interesting.
Either that or I mean, given that this is the dude from Naked, it's possible that even Brando and Kilmer knew better than to fuck with him.
And he's a consummate professional. He was not going to step out of line. He was going to deliver his lines and do what he needed to do. He's from that he's cut from that cloth. He's a great actor. I'm a big fan.
Oh yeah. So yeah, an extraordinary story, a functional movie about an extraordinary story.
Well, on that, does anybody have any final thoughts on Lost Soul, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, which is still a hell of a title?
It is.
Yeah, that's basically 3 titles all stapled together.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite quotes from the film just had to do with talking about Brando displaying contempt for the way in which he made his living. I thought that was an excellent summation of Brando in general.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating documentary about a mediocre movie.
Oh, it's not a
That's not
mediocre
mediocre.
movie. It is a genuinely bad film.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
go with bad. Yeah, that was poorly. Thank you for.
I mean,
for that.
it is a film that exists. It is professional. It just lacks.
Yeah.
It's stunningly weird, though. I do remember
It
that.
is stunningly weird, and I wish that they could have gotten some of Ron Perlman's take in this, because of course he was the sayer of the law in
yeah.
that as
I
well.
saw him in one shot of this documentary.
Me too.
Yeah.
And wasn't sure if he was in the movie either.
I was like, Ron!
But I mean, already it's a very respectable amount of it's a very respectable running time. So I get the feeling there was probably hours and hours and hours of interview material that they shot for this that they just didn't end up using in the movie, because it did not speak to the core drama of it all.
I'm also not sure they would have had the money to get somebody like Ron Perlman at this point. I think he would probably be like, "Oh, I remember that movie. Fuck off."
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm busy making a new picture now. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. We are also on YouTube now. You can find our episodes on YouTube and see our beautiful faces. So, yeah.
Oh boy.
Sorry, guys. All right. Thanks for hanging out.